Fantastic to welcome Fiona here with us this evening. Over the last few years, I've been asked a lot about, do E2W do anything about women on boards, about NEDs? And I've always said no, because there's one company, one firm that does it a lot better than us, and I couldn't repeat what they do. And that's Fiona's firm, Women on Boards. So we're delighted to perhaps have this well overdue event tonight for our members, and welcome Fiona. So Fiona, hi, good evening, welcome. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to pass straight over to you. I know you want questions and things as we go or in the chat. So let's make this interactive, but over to you, Fiona.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for letting me share why I believe the boardroom matters and why I think you're never too young to know about the boardroom. And Katie knows that I've got a little video that I'm going to play, which is of Alison Rose, the Chief Exec of the Royal Bank of Scotland, talking about her first board positions. And her answer will blow you away because it nearly caused me to fall over whilst asking it. But I do have a PowerPoint. It won't be death by PowerPoint because I love pictures and I'm energized by that. But if you want to interrupt and come in at any stage, that's fantastic. So I'm just going to get this going and hopefully you can see the PowerPoint. Thumbs up, Katie, if you can see it. So I'm Fiona Hathorn and I launched the network Women on Boards in the UK in 2012 because of the lack of women on boards in general. And we work actually with men as well as women. We'll talk about that later. So we have two brands. The second one's called Women on Boards Next Gen, or WOB Next Gen Directors. My background's asset management, which is my first love. I joined the city in 1987, and it was just at the time that electronic trading was happening. It was called Big Bang. So I was exposed to the boardroom from a young age. And I thought I knew what the boardroom did. I was buying and selling shares, but actually it wasn't until I became a non-executive director myself and a trustee that I realized that when you're in the boardroom with responsibilities, it can be different. I've been on investment trust boards, charity boards, startup boards. And if anybody wants to ask me about Hanks, which is a condom startup board, I'm very happy to take that question later because even I wouldn't have believed I'd be on that board. But anyway, there you go. So that's a little bit about me. We work with lots of corporates. These are our corporate members, and we plant seeds. We tell people about the boardroom. We do not know when that seed is going to germinate and when you're going to consider the career benefits of being on a board, but we know that the more we talk about the boardroom, it empowers people. And it's fantastic to see the number of organisations and lots of asset managers bringing us in to talk about how to realise your board potential. Now, if you wouldn't mind putting yourself on mute, Katie, I don't know whether you can have a look at that. I'm getting a bit of talk back. So if you could just double check that everyone's on mute, that would be great. We've got a website, and this is our website called womenonboards.net. If you're interested in the boardroom, register as a free member and hover for as many years as you like. I don't know when you're going to need our help, and I'll talk to you later about some of the things that we do. So I really want to get into the agenda today. I'm going to talk to you about why join a board. I'm going to talk to you about the career benefits to you personally, to your company, and also to society. It is choice. You don't have to do it, but I'd like you to know about it. You're never too young, and I'll talk about that later. I'm going to talk to you about how to join a board, because it's about selling your board value add, not you as an executive. It is different. And I'll briefly end on how we can help you if we're interested later. So getting into the boardroom, either as a C-suite executive director, one of those registered directors, or as a non-executive director, trustee, or governor, the question is, how difficult can it be? And the good news is very, because it should be. because this is an important place. We are slowly getting past where we only tap our mates on the shoulder and ask them to sit on our boards, and we're beginning to transparently advertise board roles, and it is getting increasingly difficult to get those competitive paid roles for men as well as women, and I think that's a good thing. But you have to be a bit tough about selling yourself onto boards, and we'll talk about that later. I'm not going to go on about this too much. There is such a thing as the glass ceiling. You may not have felt it. I didn't feel it, but I'm sure you're aware that doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist for some people and for some men as well. But the fantastic news is women and other male minorities have broken the glass ceiling, and these just happen to be my favorite global role models. And I'll share this with you later, Mark, for your network if you're interested. I've got a YouTube clip or a TED talk. Goldman Sachs talks, GS talks are fantastic on all of these individuals, and they've all got to the boardroom, in most cases as executives. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be easy for you, but the more you know about the boardroom, possibly sitting on small charity boards, the more chance you will have of getting to the top. Because if you look at the Fortune 500, the FTSE 350, most of those individuals who are chief execs, chairs of those organizations, have normally had exposure to the board or been on a board before the age of 28. And if you listen to all of these individuals, they're all different. I'll summarize some of their top tips, but they're always thinking of a better way. They're innovative. They have supportive partners. I can't go into that. They reach beyond their bubble, but they're fantastic podcasts. I'm very happy to share that with you. You know, the root cause of the problem within companies, but also in the boardroom, is stereotypes. We have a view of who we do and don't want to work with, and we have a view of who we believe should or shouldn't be in the boardroom. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, but being aware of those stereotypes, you know, is important. And that's why if you're not known to people in the boardroom and you can't explain your board value add, you're definitely going to have to work harder as a minority or somebody who's not known to the board, because we're worried that we don't know you. So how do you sell yourself effectively is really important. What we're trying to do at Women on Boards is open the tin lid. I want to open boards and share with you what goes on in the boardroom, and that's what we specialize in. Because what we know from the research is that minorities, male minorities and female minorities, often have to feel competent before they're confident enough to take a stretch job and sell themselves into a new space. Now, that is very true of the boardroom. If you haven't been in the boardroom, somebody will ask you, what do you know about the boardroom? And how you answer that question is crucial. So what we specialize in is demystifying this, because what happens in the boardroom is not rocket science. Most people actually do learn on the job. But of course, getting there as an independent person is different against being an executive, but that's another big subject. Now, understanding the boardroom is key, but I'm just going to introduce you to Elizabeth Passy, and I thought I would share with you some of the comments that Elizabeth made to me. Now, she used to work at Morgan Stanley, and she's now a portfolio non-executive director. She's on a series of boards, many of which are paid and some non-paid. So she's called a portfolio Ned. But she told me, if you join a board when you are still an executive, you have the opportunity to be able to rub shoulder to shoulder with people who are in the C-suite, senior leadership team, possibly way before that you're able to talk to and work with them as an executive. She says by being on small boards in her 30s enabled her to have different conversations within the office with her senior leaders than any of her peers. And as she also points out, the further up you go in an organization, the more you will learn from the breadth of your experiences that you possibly cannot get from your day job. So if you choose the right board, this is what Elizabeth is saying. It's a bit like taking a mini MBA on leadership, governance, risk and oversight, and also finances. And we'll talk to you about the few 7 reasons later. But she found it very empowering, and she believes that rocketed her executive career. So we really want to demystify it and inspire you to think about it, and have it part of a strategy, or have a choice to say you don't want to do it, because boardroom isn't for everyone. So why join a board? I've given you Elizabeth Pass's view, told you a few things, but I want to now give you 7 reasons why being on a board is something that you might want to consider. So I'm going to go through each individual reason with a bit of story, but I first want to talk to you about you're never too young to be on a board, and you're never too male either. So Mark will be happy, or any men on the call, very, very happy to help everyone. Why wouldn't we? I'm sorry that we're called women on boards. I will admit it does put men off. That is not our intention. It's to be a honeypot and a comfortable brand name for women in particular, but there's nothing gender specific about the boardroom or anything that we do. And it's lovely to meet these 2 women who worked at Oracle, both of which were under the age of 30 when I met them, and we inspired them to join a board within 6 months of meeting us. Rosie went on to a local charity board, and Gemma went on to a school governing board in her community. And no, she doesn't have children, or she didn't then, but she was a GDPR and tech and data expert just at the time that GDPR, Gender Data Protection Regulation, came in, and she brokered herself by talking to the local headmaster, and he bit her hand off when she said, would you like any help? And I'd like to be a governor of your school. So you're never too young, you're never too old. There's a board out there for all of you. Now, these are my 7 reasons, and I'm going to share these slides with you later, because I'm going to go through each of these reasons individually now. So Mark, happy to share with you the 7 reasons. The reason I'm happy to share with you that 7 reasons is because if you are talking about the boardroom, you're possibly going to have to get your company to sign off you being on a board, and they will think you're talking footsie boards, and they will think that you're too busy, and they might not want to share their talent, and they need re-educating. So that's my re-education. So the first thing is, if you join a board, reason 1, it's a point of difference on your CV. Now, Elizabeth mentioned it too, but Avni Masharu was a very ambitious director at PwC when we met her, and she joined the board. Actually, she didn't join the main board. She joined the Audit and Finance Committee of the Girls' Day School Trust. Now, if you don't know about this particular academy, they have about 40 different schools. So it's a huge organisation, very, very complex. Now, she believes this made her track to partnership at PwC faster, because she identified that she was different from everybody else going up for partnership. She had something else to talk about. And that's that point of being on your CV. People look at you in a different way, similar to what Elizabeth Passy said. So that's reason 1, could be good for you. Sure. Is there somebody coming in? Oh, that was, no. So reason 2, it allows you to develop your career and leadership skills. Now, I've chosen this because this is Angela Henderson, and she is currently on the board of Credit Suisse Asset Management. When we met her, she was working at Barclays and subsequently Deutsche Bank. I'm not quite sure which order. And I don't know about you, but do you feel that you are stuck on your desk doing a great job, but not necessarily moving up into senior management? And are you sometimes being overlooked? Now, Angela felt that she was being overlooked because she felt that she was doing something rather unacceptable in the time. This is 10 years ago. She was working flexibly. She was not working 1 day a week. She was the highest revenue earner on the desk. She was really, really doing well, but she wasn't getting treated as a leader. And we think that's wrong just because you're working flexibly. So we suggested that she got onto a local board and got her leadership stripes elsewhere. And she brokered herself onto one of the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital charitable foundations, and she became a governor of Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. Now, that's not quite the same as being on the main board, but the main board is actually reporting to the governors, and she was almost like a patient representative. This changed her view of herself. She didn't know how good she was or what she knew about HR policies and various different, and how she could help and support what was a very important organisation for her Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. As a patient, she'd been to that hospital, so I'm sure you know that hospital. Now, as a consequence of that, she's now got a portfolio career herself, and it wasn't something she'd ever thought about. So for her, it totally changed her career trajectory, and then subsequently it made it easy for her to transition into a portfolio non-exec director if you want to. So that's reason 2. Reason 3, now this is me. If you join a board, it can help you build industry knowledge or market knowledge into something different than you're doing in your day job. So I joined the board of Fight for Sight, which is a medical research charity that gives grants out to understand why people are going blind. And I'm a fund manager, so I was the trustee responsible for the oversight of how we managed and looked after our grant giving pot. But what I learned was about advertising, marketing, and digital. Something I knew a little bit about, but not a whole lot about. And I watched this charity rebrand itself. So for me, I learned a new sector and I learned something else. And no matter how tired I was, and you are tired when you're juggling lots of balls, when I went to these trustees meetings, or usually starting at 5 or 6 in the evening, my time, I was re-energized. Because of the people I was meeting and the things I was learning. I was enriching an area of my brain. So that's another reason that you might want to make time. Reason 4, engage in your community at leadership level. This is Karen Finlayson. She's a partner at PwC in Leeds, Bradford. And to her, she got involved in Doncaster College when it was going through a bit of financial difficulty. Again, it changed the perception of her. Lots of companies today want their brands associated with the community. ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and they're really happy to share that talent. And again, it differentiates you and it makes you known outside your working group. And that's what Karen found. It made her better able to bring business into PwC because her tentacles were wider and further. So just another thought. Reason 5, enables you to develop career resilience. And you might need it. Now, I don't know how many of you are at a company where things are, people above you are fat and happy, i.e. they like their job and they're not moving. You don't want to move and leave your job, but there's no career route for you. So this happened to Debbie. We met her at Wessex Water, so down in Bath, and we said, why don't you get involved in a local board or a local business at a leadership level? Not because you need to develop your leadership style. She'd been a big leader in multinational businesses, but to give her career resilience, what she coped with there being no room at the top, because there was no need to create room for her. Nothing was moving, and you might be in that situation. Reason 6 is continuity of your CV if you take a career break. Now, I haven't just put this one here for the men on the call. Andrew Thin, we know very well, and he's based up in Edinburgh, and he's one of the top Scottish non-executive directors. He took a career break when he had kids, and his first board was a mother and baby toddler group. Could that be you if you take a career break? We need to get hold of you now to say it's fine if you take a career break. It's your life, it's your choice. But when you do take that career break, how are you actively managing the optionality of what you've created by taking that career break? And again, it's choice. So do think about getting on to all sorts of boards. There's the Doctors Regional Commissioning Board, there's prison boards, there's masses of them out there for you. And it's not too time consuming, and it can really give you a strong sense of self throughout your career break. So that's the 6th reason. And then finally, for my 7th reason, and we meet people who wish they had met us before they decided to move into retirement or move into a portfolio career. Joining a board gives you a chance to explore what it's like being a trustee, governor, or non-executive director. And if you are moving in and wanted to get a few paid positions, because most boards don't pay, but if you're moving into the paid sector, you're going to find it harder if you've got no board experience. Because when you're on a board, you're at the helicopter level, you're floating at the top. It's noses in and fingers out. unless you need to dive down a drain, and that's a whole other conversation. And honing your skills and having an understanding of how you really add value in a board, not how you think you're going to add value in a board, how you really do it, and showing that you understand the dynamics of the boardroom matters. So that's the 7 reasons. And all I'm going to do now is, before we open it up to sort of Q&A, I've got a few other thoughts for you in terms of how to sell yourself onto a board. But I did promise you, before we go on to those thoughts of how to write a board CV and how we can help you, is I promised to play you a video of Alison Rose, the chief exec, I should change this to, of NatWest. It's no surprise that she's at the top of this organisation, believe me, when you listen to this video. I've got a 40-minute video of her. This is just a 1.5-minute video. I asked Alison at a large event, and you'll get a sense of the size of this event I went to at Coutts. Out of interest, Alison, you've implied that you have sat on boards throughout your life. Out of interest, what was the first board that you went on? And her answer blew me away. So I'm just going to play this for you now. Put your thumbs up, Katie, if you can hear it. If you're on an iPhone and coming in a different, it might not hear, but it's not very long if it goes silent for you.
I was a lifeguard when I was 15 when I came back to the UK, and I joined the board of the Lifeguard Trust that was down on the south coast of England. So that was the first one. When I went to university, I was on the debating society. I chaired the hockey club board. I worked for the local hospice and set up a charity fundraising for that. And then when I came out of university, I was a cox rowing on the river, competing competitively. And then I joined the board of the rowing club and got involved with that. And then I've joined different campaigns raising money for cancer research. I've joined a couple of school boards to help out at different points. So I've done a few things like that. But I think it's really simple. Join the local rugby club, the local cricket club, the school, the treasury committee, anything like that. Because I think what's really important is demystifying the whole experience. We set up a program called Empty Chairs on all of our executive committees, where we had an empty chair and we invited young female talent to join the board. Peter has done this here at Coutts to amazing effect. And it's demystifying what goes on in the boardroom, because I know when I started, I used to think there were all these terribly clever, smart people doing these amazing, magical things. Really not. It's everything that you do day to day, and it's not that different. So the more experience you get like that, they realise you can do everything.
I don't know about you, but I love that answer, and I love that video, and I love that woman. I realise this woman has had children. She's had lots of pressures. It's choice. She's chosen to do it. So it is conscious. Timing is everything in life, and she's struggled at certain different times, but I think that's hugely inspirational. It's not rocket science. Think of those empty chairs. Do you even understand the board of your own company? For example, do you know how many subsidiaries report into it? Could you sit in one of those empty chairs? Could you get somebody to open the tin lid and share for you? So that's something for you to think about. It's a pathway. You all have a different pathway. You all make different choices in your life. I want to do it now. I don't want to do it. I don't think I'll ever want to do it. Well, how do you know? You might want to later. We all change, but just be aware and exposed and realize that you are making a conscious decision. And if you want our help, and that's why I'm so grateful for access to this network and Mark's generosity of letting me talk to you today, this is how we can help you. We focus really on the boardroom, only on the boardroom, and it's called Getting Started from Where You Are Today. Getting there, we've got a vacancy board and we've got lots of support. We will hold your hand at the point of interview. We know you need friends. We want you to tell us where you're vulnerable, why you're vulnerable, and what you're worried about. And we'll connect you to somebody that we don't necessarily know really well, but we know is on a board, and we've got a huge community of help. And that's what's about getting serious, because the minute you go on a board, it's now about staying match fit with governance changes and issues and making sure you choose the right board. So there's lots of ways we can help you. Cover most of that. And so if you are interested and serious and you're not a corporate member, then do consider coming on to and investing in yourself. And Mark, we can talk about running one of these networks and events for you. If you want to get onto board, you really need to understand the role of the board, your duties and liabilities. You don't necessarily need to go on an FT and IOD course or all these fantastic governance courses. I've been on them, they're brilliant. But you just need to know what you know and what you don't know. We don't do a governance course. We do a course on how to sell yourself. And we look about the headhunter landscape, all the opportunities, and crucially, how to write a board CV, because it's complex. We're very successful. We've got about 3,000 success stories, and we've got one a day coming through, and a whole range of different boards, because there's so many things to think about. When we look at a 3-hour workshop, we're looking at the role of the board, understanding your stakeholders. You're going to be very vulnerable going to an interview if you don't understand stakeholders in the round. We specialize in making sure you keep your messaging simple. Don't overcomplicate what the board does. It only does 2 things: conformance, abiding by the law, and performance, strategy, stargazing, and oversight. Conformance is about filing your accounts, and that's a bit more complex than that. We've got more slides to cover in that. I'm not going to cover them now, but that's the thing that you need to get your pitch right. Don't try and pretend you're everything, and if you overspeak your knowledge, you will put people off, because what boards do is a lot. You're just one of the plugs that comes in, and it's making sure you understand things in the round. What does a director really do? Brings moral compass to issues, leverages their network, knows when to dive down a drain and when not to. You cannot dive down every drain. You have to be comfortable with that. And when you're being interviewed, we've got a whole series of things that you can say in your interview, which we cover in What Does a Director Really Do, so that you can hone your interview style, because this is what's going to get you over the line, including writing a board CV. Because even if you know somebody who says, apply for this board, they will still ask you to send a CV. Do not send your executive CV in. Are you mad? You are asking them to work it out, what your board value as is. It's a completely different document. So take your executive CV, shred it, and don't look at it. We've got sample CVs for you on our website, free for full members. This is Felicity first. She's never had a board position, but she's talking immediately about her committee experience. So her proxy board experience. Then you've got more complex CVs. This is Rowena Ironsides. But the bottom line into being successful is knowing how to run your personal campaign. And you'll have a lot of fun with us, because we will make you tell us your board value add. And if you do it in a group of people, and Mark, you would love this, you will see how badly some people do it. And you observing what you believe are fantastic individuals communicating their board value add badly will help you communicate yours better. And you will learn from what other people say, because it's a campaign. You don't get a board position if you don't tell people you're interested in the board, and you haven't done enough of a deep dive into the role of the board and the dynamics of the board, so that you can hone that skill, which is why we run that workshop so successfully. So that's what we do. Loads of success stories, lots of support, but crucially, we list board vacancies for free. So we've advertised over 20,000 board vacancies for free, and you get access to those boards. I know where the ones that are advertised are advertised. There's masses of boards out there, masses of them. Talk to your family, talk to your cousins, talk to your nieces, talk to your nephews, talk to them about club boards. There's a huge landscape out there that's just waiting for you. And what I'm waiting for now is your questions to really get a sense. We've got lots of events. Mark and I were discussing this earlier. If you think we run events for events' sake, you're having a laugh. Nobody wants to do that. We're always discussing something detailed. So it might be meet the headhunters. It might be about being an effective chair. It might be about the public appointments process, but our group is just all about that NED space and how we can help you, including our sort of key workshop, but lots of them are member check-ins. Listen to people, and we might have one on it might be on housing association boards, and you might think, well, I don't want to go on a housing association board, at which point I would say, great, How do you know? Do you know what they do? And actually that person speaking will be on another board. So listening to that and listening to podcasts, we've got the CV course in the cloud. That's what our vacancy board looks like. We've got 300 positions on there today that you can just look at. So it's a one-stop shop for you to go to if you're interested, but you do actually have to click on them and apply. It doesn't just happen, automatically. That's what a vacancy looks like. Eco Hydro was one of our private companies that we found 3 non-execs for. We charge nothing. We charge nothing to advertise. We charge nothing to the chair for finding that vacancy. We just want to get you the information that you need. Podcasts, love podcasts. Monica Chatter is one of my favorites. Listen to our podcasts, and when you're going out for a walk, when you're going to the gym, and get a sense of people's experiences. Monica is currently the vice chair of Queen Mary's University. Listen to her talking about applying and getting rejected, because rejection is part of the process of being a non-exec, because it's fit and personality. Listen to how she was resilient, but is now the vice chair of that organisation that rejected her, because no one is born board ready. Transferable skills. And I'll tell you later in questions why she got rejected and what she learned from that rejection, but she didn't give up. So we don't want you to give up either. It's about loads of stuff. I'm not going to go on about this. What makes our network unique, apart from the vacancies, is our unique support that we'll give you at the point of interview to make sure you get over the line, but you have to get the interview first. So I think that's probably enough. I've thrown a lot at you. We've got good 25 minutes. Let's get some really interesting questions, and please be honest, because you can be really honest with me, because that's what we specialize in, is tell us what you really think, tell us what you're really worried about, and it's choice. Thank you very much.
Fiona, thank you for that. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You stopped sharing screen. So you've stopped sharing screen, which is great. There's a little conversation going on in the chat. Listen, we'd definitely love to work out how we can do a workshop for E2W members. So let's talk about that offline afterwards, if that's okay. I have a question to start things off. You're never too young to start.
It's a good question. The point is that the older you are, the more age and wisdom that you have, and the more things that you've seen. So clearly, you tend to find, on average, people are older on boards. But remember, I talked about university club boards. Lots of boards want representatives of the people they serve. And if it's a young charity, there will often be a seat on that board for a young member from the charity. If you are working for a company, there's often a pension fund. There's 3 employee representatives on the pension fund. Yes, age and wisdom matters, but there's so many boards out there. Think of your university clubs, your debating clubs. Think of your ski club, think of your rugby club. When you go to university, you're taking membership fees in. You have a responsibility to provide a service. It is a board. So I think it depends what type of board you're talking about. There's advisory boards. Lots of organisations, Gucci, for example, have got a shadow board for younger employees to challenge the main board. There's proxy board positions, but there's lots of boards out there, but people think it's something they should think about later, and I don't agree.
Thank you, thank you. Anne-Marie, you've got a couple of questions in the chat there, which are highly relevant. Do you want to come off mute and ask them?
Hi, Mark. Yes.
Hello.
Hi there. Sorry, I was just there's a lot of noise where I'm. I guess I was just sort of starting to run through quite a few sort of questions to sort of just structure the approach, and one was really what the key differences are between sort of paying and non-paying NED roles, and the second question really was what the key skills are that boards tend to lack currently, and that's sort of aside from tech related, really.
Marie, it sounds as if it's tea time in your house.
It is.
Good.
Let's just talk about paid and unpaid. If you saw that, we always get asked this, and actually we have almost like a 20-minute discussion on it in one of the workshops. But when you think about it, university boards are currently not paid. They are very large, complex organisations. I think that's fundamentally wrong. NHS boards are complex and large. They do pay. They pay a small day rate for attending meetings, but not a huge amount. Charity boards you cannot pay. Unless you've got special dispensation from the Charity Commission, and good luck with that project. And there are very large organisations that are charities that are bigger than FTSE 350 companies, and they're very small ones. So it's a real mixed bag in what pays and what doesn't pay. When you start getting to your AIM board, your listed board, or a large private business board, you're then getting into what I describe as competitive roles. And in terms of skills audits, a good board should have a skills audit and make sure they've got everything covered. And nearly always do you have an accountant or a risk expert who's a non-exec. But organizations used to really, there's lawyers on boards, there's marketing, there is logistics, there's data. It just depends where the board's coming, but it depends on the size of a board. It's really difficult to answer that question, but you tend to find at the FTSE level, we want to know that you've been on a listed board and you've got things covered in the round. I've just done some research on the FTSE All Share. So I've just looked at all the companies outside the FTSE 350. I found PR people on board, HR people on board, heads of people. It's so difficult. But what I will tell you, Anne-Marie, is what I find is the accountant says it's not fair. I can't get a board position because they've already got an accountant. The lawyer says I can't get a board position because they've already got a lawyer on the board. The HR person says something similar. It is very competitive, and be aware that they will have a skills audit. And if they're looking for a digital person now and you're not a digital person, probably not worth applying. But when they do interview you, they want to know more than just your digital knowledge. They want to know, can you contribute to other conversations in the round, or are you just going to be a one-trick pony? So actually, if you are a head of people and they want people and diversity knowledge and leadership knowledge, which is a new board seat, or environmental knowledge, social and governance, these new ESG positions, be prepared to answer the question with regard to your board value add, but don't spend the whole interview talking about it. Because if you're competing against two similar people and one's been on a board before, they have a sense and understanding of what the boardroom's about, and they will show themselves as interviewing the board and showing their ability and knowledge as a leader to contribute to other conversations. So quite a long answer to that question, but there are so many characteristics, and every board is different. Every single board. But yes, digital is a key skill that most boards do not have covered. Another question.
Sorry, Anna-Marie, does that answer your questions? Yeah, I'm guessing.
Yes, thank you.
I'm guessing yes. Thank you. Millie, you have your hand up, and thank you for raising your hand.
Hi. I had a question that kind of follows on quite neatly from that. I was wondering more about, are there any skills that are critical for any role on a board? Like, what are the key skills that any board member really needs to be considering?
You need to understand the collegiate environment of collective decisions. You need to understand that you're not running the company. You're overseeing what goes on within the company. And the key thing when you're choosing to join a board is to be comfortable with who's chairing the board. And that chair-CEO relationship is really, really important, because, and any other non-executive director, it's important that you're engaged with the company and you visit the company, you kick the tires, and if it's a charity or a hospital, how you do that matters. Because if you pile in, you will upset a lot of people. The chief exec needs to know you're about to turn up and engage, and how you challenge, and all those E skills, those EQ skills are so important. And that's why Elizabeth Passy talked about it changed the nature of observing leadership styles, seeing leadership styles. There's a lot into being a successful non-exec, and unfortunately it's one of the reasons why board positions aren't transparently advertised. We talk about wanting diversity and inclusion, we talk about what's not wanting groupthink, but we're petrified of people we don't know. Why? Because we don't know how they're going to behave in that room, in a situation of crisis. And that's why understanding your board value add, and that's why in that workshop that we run, it really is making sure that you understand the Companies Act, but not everything in the Companies Act, but the principles of it. You understand the principles and the importance of risk registers, whether you are the risk expert or not. And understanding how to be efficient with your voice in meetings and how meetings worked is really important, because there's a lot to get through in the agenda. So that's why exposure to the boardroom, exposure to leadership really helps. So again, I'm a font of all sorts of knowledge. Millie, any thoughts that have you got? Have you got board experience yourself, Millie? Have you thought?
No, I do have an enterprise risk background, so I kind of get to see the other side from inside a company. I used to work in a team that worked quite closely with the board, basically. I suppose there's kind of a bit of balance, isn't there, in that being kind of prepared to ask those tricky questions and those annoying questions, but doing it in a way that actually makes those questions productive rather than creating roadblocks.
And one of the things we look at when we look at the Companies Act is making sure everybody understands that you're all there as an individual, and your duties are to the company first, to the employees, to the suppliers, to the stakeholders. There's lots of people you have a duty to, not just the company, because this is about the long-term survivability of the company in the round, including, hiring and firing the chief exec if necessary, if that is the right thing to do. But yes, there's a lot in it, and it can be very richly rewarding. But for you, thinking about the exposure you've had to the board, how you've reported into the board, means that you will answer the question of, have you had board experience? Because you could have said, yes, I regularly worked with my previous board. The exposure that I've had to the board are the key things I've learned from that have been point bang delivered, as opposed to, well, no, not really. I sort of have. Do you see what I mean? And that's what we cover in terms of how you sell that board knowledge. And but thank you for your question. I love your background.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have to admit, the background made me very jealous as well. You just need a glass of wine in your hand, Millie, and you'll be fine.
I've actually just finished my glass of wine of the night. So. Good,
thanks. Lovely to see you, Millie. Love to see you. Louise, good. You've asked a question. Do you want to ask it live?
Yes, I think I just wanted to ask what type of organisations does someone perhaps at the beginning of their career consider? Is it mostly like charities that would take someone with perhaps less experience, board experience on, or schools or perhaps college?
The way I would answer that question is, what are you interested in? Because it may be that you're interested in your local theatre. It may be that you like pottery. It may be that you can't play hockey now, but you used to play hockey, but you're interested in hockey. It may be you're interested in the Girl Guide. There's so many things out there. And then get engaged, because I know lots of the theatres in London prior to lockdown were interested in how do we encourage and get closer to the community that we currently live in? How do we get young people going to boards? How do we get ethnic minorities coming to boards? How do we engage them? And if you don't have their voice at the table, so they're setting up little advisory boards, which is, you're not quite on the main board, and that's often the first step to getting onto the main board, by taking on some of these advisory roles. So that's why we say, when you are walking home or you're walking out and about, go, what's the governing body of that? Who's overseeing that organisation? What's that? You will see them everywhere. And you'll think, who's on that board? Why are they on that board? what are they missing that I could offer? And that's why there are all these different levels of boards that you can join, including, you know, an advisory board. Hanks, the startup company, that I'm on their advisory board. I don't have time to sit on their main board, and actually I'm the wrong person to sit on that board. I don't have FMCG experience. I don't have private equity experience. So there's a skills that they need on their board that I don't have, but I can chair their nominations committee to look for new board members, and I can be part of an interview panel, and I can be part of that company's success. So to me, that's my proxy. I've got half a skin in the game of what I'm doing. So think about all of those things, but you will find something out there. But you do need community experience, community voices on things, and age is part of that community. And given what's going on at the moment with COVID and the effect on our young people, I want more youngsters getting involved in all sorts of different things because it matters.
Okay, yes. Oh, I'm currently a school governor, which I really enjoy, in a primary school. And I think that's quite a good way of gaining experience, I think.
And to be absolutely clear, you are a non-executive director. You have all the responsibilities, all the liabilities, all the oversight, and including knowledge of regulators, because you will understand the school regulator and what that means. And your job is to make sure that's happening, and you have a sense of health and safety. There's all sorts of knowledge. So when somebody next asks you on a board, please answer yes, because people often think that the governor or trustee is not the same. And it is the same. So fantastic news. You have a sense of yourself that you didn't have before by being on that board. And so if you wanted to apply for one of those big academy trusts or another board, you can talk about how you've added value to that board. And you can talk about how you understand the difficulties of all those relationships. So they've got two candidates. You have a school governor, the other person going for a paid position, you know, maybe later on in life, who hasn't had that experience. I'd rather have you, because you know, hopefully, how to behave. They might not. And some chief executives at that FTSE level, which is sort of different again, you know, some of those make terrible non-executive directors, because they just can't be patient. They're used to it's my way or the highway, and it's different.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Because you're welcome.
I couldn't agree more there with my experience of working on a local parish council as chairman of the parish council, in fact, and also on the board of a local swimming club. And actually the skills, the way they work is so very similar. There's huge amounts of transferable skills once you've got your foot in the door. Fiona Orchard. Hi, Fiona. You've asked a question in there, which I think is a great one. Do you want to come off mute and ask? You have done. Hi,
yes.
Fiona. How are you?
Hello. Hi. So I work at Deutsche Bank currently, and for several years I haven't been a board member, but I have worked for the three different CEOs of a Deutsche Bank subsidiary, a UK bank subsidiary. So it's kind of a small bank within a bank. And I also sat on another trustee company limited within Deutsche Bank as well, like another small subsidiary as a non-executive director. Very recently, through our corporate social responsibility sort of network, a charity, a very small charity in London, who's sort of starting up. It's connected with mental health, which I'm very keen on and passionate about, have asked within Deutsche Bank if they're looking for 2 roles to join their board. And I spoke to the young lady who has sort of started this business. I think she won some award within Deutsche Bank for entrepreneurship. We've had a very brief meeting. They were looking for a chairperson, and they were also looking for a treasurer. So I went for the treasurer, spoke to them and said, actually, my advice to you is to get somebody with more of an accounting background, etc., because I think you'd want the best person for that. And I don't think it's me. And she said, okay, would you consider the chair position? Now, because it's so new, and I know a little bit about what they're doing. They seem to be starting up.
Let me ask the chair position. Often boards only advertise when they're looking for a chair, because there's nobody internally setting up, and that's frustrating because lots of our members say, but I don't want to be a chair yet. I'm not sure, I want to see what it's like. Be very, very clear that you, most people, if a board's got, it's maybe 4 or 5 non-execs, they normally want one of the non-execs to chair one of the committees. So you will nearly always, so if ever you get asked, would you consider chairing it, you say, yeah, of course. Then you interview them and see if you can work and you like it. And I do realize that chairing, be clear, Fiona, is chair is whatever they say is the time commitment for a non-exec, times it by 3 for a chair. So I can see why you'd struggle. We actually run a little chairs course to make people feel more comfortable with what is the difference, because the chair sets the agenda. The chair controls the discussion. What I tend to find is I suspect you have chaired loads of things internally and you are an experienced chair. You know what works and doesn't work. You know how to write minutes, or maybe you wouldn't be writing the minutes, but you understand the process. So you could do it if you like the organisation, you wanted to do it, and you could give the time. So don't not take it on because it's the chair role, but be sure that you really like this organisation, because given your board experience, which you have and is extensive, I meet loads of people in a similar background, they haven't half the exposure and knowledge that you do. There might be something else. You might be underselling yourself right now, because the minute you go on this board, you really should give it 6 years. It's going to take you to work out what's going on.
I think that's helpful, yeah, because I haven't really thought about how to get on a board, a charity board, hence I've joined this call. I think I was just looking at that as, there's an opportunity, but they don't seem to be very experienced at all across anything. So I'm concerned.
You've just looked at what Chuck out. What I want to do, that's why our vacancy board's so brilliant. I want to show you everything and say, Fiona, have a look. And they say, oh God, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Most of it you won't be interested in. But just click on the prison authority board. Fascinating. When you click on all these vacancies, what they'll do is show you a skills audit of what they're looking for. And you think, oh, I've got that. Not interested in that board, not interested in boxing at all, actually. But that's something that's not on my CV. I never thought about that relevance. You'll get a range. And when you've seen the range, you can think, okay, if you look at the chair of Scottish Widows, we met her 8 years ago. The first board she went on was a cricket board. The second board was the Coal Miners Pension Fund board. The third board was a housing association board. Then she went on to an international subsidiary board of a bank. Then she went on to something else, Boop, something not listed. Now she's chair of Scottish Widows, reporting to Lloyds Bank, listed. What do you think her next move is? FTSE 350. That was an 8-year strategy. So what are you doing it for and why? And just, you will be conflicted where you are at the moment. And lots of your companies say, sorry, we don't agree with some of the ones that aren't corporate members. They say, no, we won't allow, we Deutsche Bank, we're going to list, cover, broke debt. You can't do it. In reality, they forget that you're talking about community boards to build your board presence, to build your career later. And loads of them are perfectly happy with that. But yeah. Get in touch. I'm sure we can help you, but we want you to make the right decisions for the right reasons, and you're certainly thinking about it the right way. But are you looking at everything or just one blip in the board landscape? And it sounds like one blip. You're welcome.
Fiona, thank you for that. I'm conscious of the time here, guys. We've got a few minutes left. Fiona, a quick question from Lindsay. Can you comment on a typical time commitment?
No, how long's a piece of string? And that's because every board is different. Hospital board is going to be one board meeting a month that might last an afternoon. You'll be on one committee, so you times it by 2. You might go on site visits. A FTSE board is going to be something different again. Everything is different. Fight for Sight is a medical research charity. It was 4 board meetings a year. That was all. I was on one committee, that's another 4 board meetings a year. I could have been training to run a marathon, or I could join this board. Not that time consuming. Everything is different. Hanks, where I'm an advisor, I only meet them once a year, depending on the nominations committee and what work they need to do. So it depends. I want to cover one last thing, and that is with regard to ethnic diversity on the board. We certainly haven't fixed the number of women on boards. I'm not going to talk about that, but we know there's a big lens on getting Black individuals on boards. I don't like using the word BAME prior to that report, no comment, I mean, really. But do use that as being a beacon of light for you. A lot of people say, I don't want to be the tick box. Rarely do I find a quality woman or a quality Black woman or a quality Asian woman. Usually you're a beacon of light. Grab the opportunity, but whatever you do is make sure that they are really embracing you on the board, and make sure you interview them. But you are certainly worthy and you're certainly deserving of the board. But don't worry about them obviously looking for a female candidate. And men tell me it's not fair. I'm not a woman and I'm not a Black woman, therefore it's going to be possible for me. Simply not true. It's more competitive out there, and there's lots of board positions going to men as well as women. But there's a great opportunity for ethnic diversity on the board. So grab it and embrace it, and let's be the change we want to be.
Fiona, I think that was a brilliant last words. Thank you so much. I think that's been inspiring, interesting, and we would love to follow up. Let's get together and talk about how we structure a workshop or something for the people on the call here, and see how we can take this forward. Thank you very much. To all the E2W members out there, thank you. Thanks for your participation. Look forward to seeing you all soon. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so we've got a coffee break, and we're launching Men for Inclusion tomorrow morning. If you're interested in that, go and have a look at the website. Brilliant. It's 7 o'clock. My tea is waiting. Fiona, thank you. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.